Today's podcast is brought to you by Dell Expert Network. Cyber attacks can destroy businesses, and when data is the driver behind the success of your business, there's nothing more important or worth protecting. Protecting the organization starts with protecting the data, and no one knows this better than Dell Technologies. Join the Dell Expert Network now at www.dell.com/expert network to learn more about how Dell Technologies is partnering with MSPs to offer their broad array of security solutions.
This episode is brought to you by VARC Solutions, an elite-level Intuit QuickBooks solution provider. VARC's partner program helps MSPs add QuickBooks products and services to your line card. There's no fee to join and no sales quotas. VARC handles everything with pricing and order support and escalated expert QuickBooks support. Visit varcsolutions.com/partners for more information.
You're entering the MSP Zone, a podcast for the managed services community, covering news, analysis, and interviews from around the globe. Elevate your MSP game by staying in the MSP Zone. And now, your host, Charles Weaver.
Well, we're ending close to the end of hurricane season, at least for those folks down in Florida and the Caribbean. But it's always a good time. It's probably a great time to start or keep the conversation going, I should say, about kind of the fundamentals of why MSPs exist and the role that MSPs have been playing in the market for many, many, many years. I'm not talking just, only in hurricane season. I'm talking for 3 decades or more. MSPs have been out there really doing a great variety of good, a lot of work. Yeah, it's technical, some of it, but it transcends just the technical to actually helping businesses, people in businesses, to become better prepared, better insulated, and also to recover more quickly from natural disasters, business disrupting events, storm, natural, unnatural, whatever. That's really a big part of what MSPs are all about. And, well, I don't want you to take my word for it. I've asked one of our good old friends from an MSP to come on and to share his wisdom and his experience on this topic. And I'm very happy to have Ken Stringer from CMA. Ken, welcome to the MSP Zone.
Hey, Charles. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to talk to you again. You're pretty well known in the industry, but for the folks out there who may not be familiar with what you do or what the good folks at CMA do, give us a little quick history on CMA, if you would.
Yeah, sure, no problem, and thank you for that. I guess the history on CMA is that we started in 1984, and we just recently celebrated our 38th year in existence. Myself, in November, I will make my 23rd year as part of the company. And we started way back when dealing in the System 30, System 36 space, which turned into the IBM AS400 and that lineage. And probably in the 90s, we started into the open system space, and that's when I was joined in the late 90s. And we've just kind of grown over the years, became a MSP 15 or so years ago, and we just continue on in the space, taking care of our customers as they need, whether it's a managed service, whether it be just standard managed services or managed security, or the traditional VAR projects, those types of things. We're about 80 people in size, and we've got a really good, tight group with a really good culture.
Yeah, no, and I can attest to that fact. You guys put on a mean crawdad party for those of you who have ever been lucky enough to be down there. You guys, obviously, I just gave it away. You guys are based in Louisiana. You guys get a fair amount of less than friendly weather. Is that fair to say? Less than friendly?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely fair to say it's not friendly. And I would also say it's crawfish boil, just to clarify that for those northern folk on this call here. It's all good, man. It's all good. I had to give you a little bit of ribbing on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are definitely known for seasonal adversity, if you will.
Seasonal adversity. I love it. I would like to ask your opinion, because it seems to me that a lot of people may think and look at MSPs as, oh, they just handle the technical. I know and I believe that is not true. Is that how, have you ever encountered that? Is that how your customers look at you? Just curious.
So to be fair and honest, we do have a small sliver of our customer base who looks at us as a just technical.
Mm-hmm.
But what we strive to do is that we want to be your trusted advisor. We want to be part of your business, so that, and one of the lines that we've used is, we want to focus on your IT so that you can focus on your business. And as long as we're building that relationship, that we can actually go forward together and make a better difference.
Yeah. I remember, and I'm, I don't think we knew each other back then, but I remember in early to mid 2006. So it was right after Katrina, which for those of you who don't remember, Katrina was pretty devastating to a lot of people, but particularly the folks within Louisiana and New Orleans and up through Houston. I remember one MSP, and it was probably at one of our MSP World conferences, and I remember an MSP talking about their backup as a service to a customer in New Orleans, and how the customer had said, "Oh, we don't want anything backed up. We already do it." And they were talking about their tape backup, right? For those of you who don't know tape backups, go look it up online. Anyway, the office administrator was in charge of doing the tape backup swaps. And for the last 3 months before Katrina hit, they had not done it. And so when they were going to restore all this data, the MSP realized that the customer had not, in fact, backed up their data. In fact, the customer had many months of data to recreate before they could get back up on their feet. And yet, data backup, yeah, it's a technical thing, but that's a great example, in my opinion, of how the MSP transcends just technical issues and gets to the heart of how businesses operate. I don't know if you ever heard any of those types of stories from Katrina. I'm sure there's some pretty wild stuff that you guys heard about.
Man, Katrina was a beast.
Yeah,
it was not a good time, but yeah, we had I can't remember the number, to be honest. It's many moons ago, but we had a lot of customers that were seeking our help post Katrina. We hosted quite a few of our customers out of our own building here in Baton Rouge after Katrina. And a lot of them just came with tapes in hand asking, help us. What can we do? And that was a major scramble. I mean, little tidbits that we had a customer who downtown New Orleans had tape backups, issues with that. Had to go back and get more tapes out of the building after the storm had passed. But we actually had to rebuild their data center out of our conference room just because of the inundation of folks and lack of room.
Yeah.
And then take that to their next data center colo so that we can get their business back online. Thankfully, they had tape. And thankfully, we were able to procure the gear and get them moving. That's just an example of the many that came from that storm.
And I don't want to make it a case study on Katrina, but I do think that every natural disaster, is particularly every storm, there are really good lessons to be learned. after Katrina, did you and the folks at CMA see any shift in business? I don't know, and maybe the way that they approached working with CMA as a managed service provider, and the things that you might have been advocating before Katrina hit that they may have said, that's not a really big priority for us. And then all of a sudden they shift and they say, yes, we're doing this, get it done. We don't want to see this again. You get where I'm coming from?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Quite honestly, the function of business continuity, whether you're an MSP, MSSP, or not, just a function of a business who has their own IT, business continuity is a pretty important element to your organization. That, whether it was Katrina or the last couple of years, this year we've been fortunate that it's been rather quiet on our side of the Gulf, thankfully, because the last 2 years was pretty horrific in itself. That business continuity, Katrina to now, it's a common element that pieces of consideration within your business continuity plan change, but the core element is I've got to make sure my data's backed up. I've got to make sure that I can get to my backups and I have a place to restore them in the event something happens, whether it be a hurricane, tornado, fire, even cyber event. That's a big thing. And thankfully technology has shifted for the positive over the years to allow us to provide better, faster backups so that we can actually do a better, faster recovery, even to the point of just real-time replication is a common element more so today because it is more common, but the price has astronomically dropped and the technology around being able to facilitate that.
That's funny that you said that. Do you think that cyber attacks, I'm talking about maybe in the minds of your customers or the average, MSP customer out there, do you think they think cyber attacks have any similarity to a storm like a Katrina or a Hurricane Ian? You get where I'm coming from? Like one is distinctively technical. The other one is a natural disaster, but hearing you talk, there's a lot of very similar outcomes and business processes that could be impacted.
Absolutely. Really, it's contingency planning. Contingency could be the hurricane. It could be a cyber event. And to answer your question, though, customers really don't, in a lot of cases, that correlation just doesn't happen. We try to make sure that we're bringing that to the table as a conversation point to help them realize you have to plan for this failure just as much as the other one. And even audits today are actually starting to require cyber event type planning as part of your business continuity plan.
Yeah, well, that's from your state law down there, isn't it? The MSP registration law has that requirement, if I'm not mistaken.
I do not think that that's part of the exact requirement.
Okay, I have to go back and look at it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too. I think it was a little bit more simpler than that, but I know from an auditing standpoint that actually popped up from I believe the year prior to last year's auditing. We're starting to see that.
Yeah. So the MSP, you're right. The MSP Verify audit now covers that. I think that update came from the Louisiana MSP registration law, where at least those of you who are covered by that, meaning you have a state agency in Louisiana, if you had a cyber event, you would have to go and report that to that state agency. And so that's kind of how we picked it up and made it, more general to MSPs than that. But it's maybe not fair to ask you. Your customers are all over Louisiana, correct? You're not just in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and all that.
Correct. Yes. I mean, yeah, our territory, as we would call it, is East Texas all the way to Panhandle of Florida. So, I mean, we've got several states that we cover, but of that customer base, they do have locations outside of that territory, even internationally.
Do they, and I'm not asking for any specifics here, but do your customers have an appreciation of what it takes to be prepared for a business disruption event of whatever source, storm or otherwise? And do they get that? And are they authorizing you guys to, do the things that they need to do to be more secure, more prepared? That's a tough question.
Well, no, it's probably, the question's easy. It's a tough answer. I would say that we have customers who understand it, respect it, and actually try to evolve with it. We have some that understand it firsthand, lived, some sort of disaster situation, and they might forget it down the road. It's just kind of like you might hear about learning a language. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing there. And people become complacent sometimes. So, whether the industry is forcing that preparedness or, that actually helps people stay on top of it, or the business leadership understands that reality, sometimes they just forget it. We try to have them keep that top of mind. And a lot of our services, we just kind of build it in, making sure that we are backing up the data, making sure that we have another copy somewhere off site, making sure that we're doing proper restore tests, those sorts of things for our managed customers.
Mm-hmm.
We try to build that for our non-managed customers as well, because it's important. We have, and I'll go back to your comment about tape and looking it up. A lot of people in the industry will say tape is dead or has died. And I've been, totally against that over the years. Tape is not dead. It's long far from dead, because quite frankly, that is one type of media that you can land your data on that is recoverable in a lot of drastic disasters, cyber event, in particular. I'm not trying to make this a security conversation, but
yeah.
A cyber event is just as bad as I just burned my building down on accident, and I've got data that I've got to restore. Well, if I've got stuff on a tape and I can go get me a tape library to drop my tapes back and start my restores, I've got good, clean data.
And it's air gapped, right? It's separated from a network standpoint from the source of the attack.
Absolutely. Yeah, because once you lay data to the tape and you pull the tape out of the library, it's definitively gapped from the ones and zeros floating on the wire somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you've got to make sure that they are preserved properly, environmentally controlled. Make sure that they are out of any kind of fire danger, so that, again, contingency planning.
Do you get business? Because I've long suspected this based off of conversations with MSPs, but do you guys see a spike in business after storms, where maybe non-customers, but even some customers, I suppose, come to you and say, "Hey, Ken, we really dodged a bullet. We want to proceed with something, that they may not have been doing previous, but the storm kind of is a fresh reminder of how vulnerable they are." Do you get that at all?
Oh yeah, all the time. All the time. I mean, we try to, our sales team's really good about being proactive about these kind of things well in advance of our storm season or any other, like wintertime. I think, a couple of, was it 2020? Yeah, I guess it was 2021 when we had that big ice storm that hit Texas and Louisiana. that's just another type of disaster that can come and hit you and haunt you. It's not very frequent, but it's again, it's something that needed to be it's something that had to be contended with. Now, people are starting to somewhat plan on, okay, if I have an ice storm, what do I do? I've got to worry about people. Make sure your their families are taken care of and planned accordingly. Then you got to plan for your people and so on and so forth. And it's complacency happens. It's human nature. If it's not a hot button topic, the ones that get it and continue to grow it and do better. And then some people just, I've missed that bullet. I'm good. I don't need it. And some people see that the bullet was close and they realize, okay, I do need to do something better.
Yeah. I'm really fascinated by listening to your responses that the cyber and the natural disaster is two sides of the same coin, in my opinion. Yeah, you may be taking slightly different preventative measures depending on what you're dealing with, but there's many business and technical steps that an MSP could take on behalf of a customer to protect against both, right? A storm or a non-natural cyber type of event. And it all comes down to data and getting back up online. And I just think it's a good conversation to have, especially when everybody's so preoccupied about cyber security and are you an MSSP? And there's so much, it goes, in my opinion, well beyond that. And I'm not knocking cybersecurity or managed security, but I think that there's a lot. I wouldn't want the MSPs out there to forget the other side of that coin.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I do honestly believe that business continuity is just a core piece of a business that you have to make sure you're planning accordingly to be able to provide services to your customers. And it's our responsibility to make sure our customers are prepared.
Yeah. I think I asked you this before we started recording, but you guys did not get hit. I mean, Ian, I know had some pretty devastating impact in Caribbean and Florida, and then it kind of bounced up kind of along the Atlantic coast. But you guys were okay, and your customers didn't really. Did your customers get impacted at all?
So we were so lucky on this one because once that hurricane entered the Gulf, we were starting to get nervous in this area, to be honest with you. I mean, because last year we had Ida come straight through Baton Rouge, and I guess it came inland and Homa, and same effect as Ian. It was pretty devastating for these parts. Thankfully, we didn't get a drop of anything, or no wind, no nothing. Unfortunately, Florida took the brunt, and we didn't have any customers directly affected by the storm.
Good.
In Florida, but we have a customer that has a handful of people that are scattered about in Florida. That a couple had some near misses, and they had a few that were directly impacted, but minimal power outages, not a lot of devastation, thankfully, for those folks. But again, the majority, I do feel for the ones that were hit really hard over there.
Yeah. Well, no, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. Just one final question or two. Appreciate your time, Ken, as always. As we're getting close to the end of 2022, I can't believe the year is almost over, and we're looking at 2023. I'd like your general quick thoughts on the overall, the managed services market. With the financial markets aren't doing that great. There's most people think that we're in a recession, and yet if you talk to the MSPs, you don't necessarily get the same negative feeling. Curious as to your thoughts about the state of the MSP market in general going into 2023.
I would say that the market is strong and good. moving forward, especially if you are providing quality service with quality people. Very strong market. We're starting to see some of the bigger players in our area coming and doing some mergers and acquisitions on some of the smaller ones. But it's definitely a strong market, and we will definitely see some growth in 2023. I guess the only caveat to any of that is the supply chain. That's always a hurdle until we can get past it.
Is that still? I mean, I know I hear people talking about, hey, it's getting a little bit better. Is it, in your opinion?
It's getting a little bit different, I would say. I can't say it's better, but it's definitely different.
Different, but not better. A different kind of delay, or?
Yes. What was not delayed, what was delayed is not delayed, and what was not delayed is now delayed. So, play on words there, but it's just ridiculous. It's a moving target. A lot of it is centered around, I guess, what we're experiencing the worst of is network equipment. Doesn't matter what kind of network equipment. It's all encompassing supply chain issues.
Silicon based, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've even seen some of the vendors that we utilize in partnerships with, that they're changing their engineering to try to counter the chip shortages and the silicon-based problems.
Interesting. Like through lengthening life cycle of devices, that type of thing.
Yeah. I think it will extend some life cycle, but it will also help them balance against some of the shortages too. That if I can't get these components that I'm built now, though, I can get these other components and still provide a quality product. And even though we are a managed service, we still rely on product to make sure that the customer is getting their needs fulfilled. Whether they're growing, adding more people, or a life cycle change of equipment, whatever it might be, equipment still has to get out the door to these guys.
Very true. Very true. Ken Stringer from CMA. Ken, thank you so much for coming on and just taking time out of your busy day and just talking to us. And it's just kind of refreshing to hear your perspective on kind of the nuts and bolts, the fundamentals of what great work you and other MSPs do every day for companies that, doesn't always necessarily have to deal with cyber. It can just deal with good old fashioned keeping customer businesses up and running. And I tell you, it's a good thing to know that, MSPs like you guys are out there. So definitely keep up the great work.
Well, thank you, Charles, and thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. And you love having a good chat with you.
Anytime, you're welcome. Anytime back on the program. Love to chat with you guys, and keep on eating those crawfish.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right, folks. Until next time.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you will get notified when future episodes are released. We will see you next time in the MSP Zone.